Hi, I was asked to address three questions. The first one was, what is the MTA's position on 21st century skills? The next one is, do you feel that there's a need for additional professional development for teachers to be more effective embedding 21st century skills into their instructional practices? And finally, do you see a role for teachers in Massachusetts to help develop skill-based standards and assessments? And the answer to all of them is yes. So just going through some of the points on the three specific questions, the MTA and the NEA do support the effort to embed 21st century skills in our curriculum in our schools. The NEA was actually a founding partner at the national level. The reason we support it is we don't want to replace MCAS, we don't want to get rid of standards, we think that it needs to be supplemented. And I will just chime in with Charles. You know, I had the opportunity last spring to go to China and visit schools and talk to educators in China. China wasn't in the list of countries that we discussed, but you know, that's the country that I'm always hearing about. I'm always hearing about how China and India want to eat America's lunch, and that they want to steal the future from our children. And we had some very great discussions over there. And the truth is the Chinese educators were all talking about how to become more like America and to build in creativity and critical thinking into their learning and their teaching. Let's face it, they do a great job at teaching the basics and the skills. They really hammer it home. I mean, I have video of children standing up and reciting, and doing very systemic things in their classroom. But China was looking to America as to how to change their education system to be more like us, to develop more creativity and be more on the forefront of design and critical thinking. So I'm not about throwing out the standards, but I do think that we need to provide a fuller picture of what our students can do and should be able to do in the future. I don't know about you, but I'm a traditional learner. I came up through the Somerville and Cambridge public schools, and the way I learned my multiplications tables, I remember Miss Kohler in the Somerville public schools making everybody memorize the table, and we all had to stand up one by one and recite them. And it was a very grueling experience. Now, I'm a traditional learner. I was able to learn it that way. There were others in my class who weren't engaged in that way and did not pass Miss Kohler's test. My daughter, she has learned the multiplication tables in a very different way, and I find that she has actually is learning in a way that she's able to apply her mathematics skills in a much more fluent manner than I was able to do as a student. And hopefully that continues through her education. She's in 6th grade right now, but I hope that she comes out of high school and college being able to apply those skills. I'm somebody who, I did very well in school. I got A's and B's all the way through, and I could show you the records, but if you asked me to take a math test right now, I would not do too well. So those are my own personal experiences, but I learned a great deal in school in the academic setting, but I also learned equally as much from middle school on through the workplace. I worked in retail, I worked in science and research environments, and I think that we really need to focus on either trying to provide those experiences in school or working in greater partnership with the business community and community organizations outside of school to give children those experiences. Going into, do you feel there's a need for additional professional development? Absolutely. I've heard the first two speakers talk about that. Technology continues to revolutionize the way we work with one another and communicate with one another. I'm somebody who, this position I'm in right now is term limited. At some point, I may be going back to the classroom in Cambridge as a social studies teacher, a middle school teacher. The first thing I'm doing before I go back into the classroom is just immersing myself, maybe taking some classes with Deb on how to use technology more effectively in engaging students. And I think that's the major issue for us around using technology, is how to use it to engage students and individualize instruction going forward for students. I'll wrap up very quickly. On the last question, do you see a role for teachers in developing the skills-based standards? Absolutely, especially as we talk through Race to the Top and these other initiatives about using student learning outcomes as part of the evaluation process for teachers. I think teachers absolutely need to be involved. They want to be asked, and they want to be involved. They want it to be objective and transparent, and they want to know what they're going to be held accountable for.
Just to set a context, Intel in Massachusetts is located in Hudson on the Marlborough border. We've got about 2,000 people working there, half of whom are what you'd call blue-collar workers. They are community college graduates or have 10 years experience in the military. So that's the backdrop for some of my comments. Let me just start with a quick story. I was in the lunch line a couple of weeks ago, turned to John and said, so John, how are things going? And he said, well, I've got some new interns that we've pulled on, and they are working with us for the summer, and one of them just isn't working out. And we're considering, of course, all these interns for full-time positions, but I just don't know about this guy. And I said, what's up? And he said, well, the guy knows a lot about the technical part of the job. He's got that down cold. But he's always coming to me looking for direction. He's always asking what he can do next. And he's a guy who I can't rely on to identify a problem, talk to his peers, come to me with solutions. This is what I need from my employees. So what John's talking about are what Intel calls performance skills. And what we've been referring to today, I think, is 21st century skills. For Intel, taking a page out of the manual that is given to hiring managers, they are asked that 60% of their decision for hiring be framed on performance skills. The figuring is that Intel has technical workshops that they can offer people to learn the technical parts of the job, but performance skills are those that are harder to acquire but are critical to success in our demanding work. Let me just read to you, if I could, a sample of some of the questions that are posed to hiring managers to ask to new hires, as an example. And I ask you to consider, what are behind these questions? Should we be waiting till college to prepare students for the work world that are implied in some of these questions? And what are the implications for teachers and professional development and lesson plans? Careful listening and effective communication go together. Tell me about a specific time when your skill in listening helped you communicate better. Think of a development goal you set. How did you make and monitor your progress? Tell me about a time when you effectively inspired an individual or group to excel on a task or project. How did you do it? Tell me about an instance in which you changed an opinion or action after receiving new information. Describe something you developed that had to be right. Exactly how did you test it? Give me an example of any time when you used tools such as survey data, library research, or statistics as important contributors to define a problem. Tell me about a time when you thought you knew how to handle a situation, yet chose to solicit opinions from other team members. So from my experience and the research that I've read, my daughter, as an example, who's currently a senior in college, is going to change her careers 14 times. The critical skills that she's going to need to tackle the competencies that she's going to require for the next job that she'll need are the ability to learn, that are wrapped up in the performance skills that are behind the questions that I just read. These are the ways of thinking: creativity, innovation, critical thinking, problem solving. They're the ways of working: collaboration and communication. One of the reasons that the Mass Business Alliance for Education supported the Common Core is that we had an independent evaluator that looked at both the Common Core and the current Massachusetts frameworks and came back with a recommendation that, in fact, both are very strong, but the Common Core tended to support and align with the competencies required for career and college readiness. Our recommendation to policymakers is to support, clear support, strong support for the core academic areas, for traditional academic areas, but to infuse them with performance skills much like our previous speakers have indicated. So as to wrap up, so as one of the educators that was quoted in the excellent Rennie report said, we're embarking on to attack this issue, to do it right, we're embarking on a marathon, not a sprint.